Welcome everyone to the Jive with Dr. Jivi Show. We are here today with one of my very close friends, very dear to my heart, Denise McKinney, and we're going to have so much fun, such a blast. Welcome to the show, Denise.
Hi, I'm so glad I'm here. Thank you for inviting me.
Such a bright smile as usual.
I'm so excited.
I just love you. I remember the first time we met and I ended my conversation with, I don't know what to say right now. I just love you.
I just love you.
I think I had left Denise's information just underneath this video when I did the marketing for it, but if you did not get a chance to read Denise's Hey Gorgeous letter on her website, you need to go frickin' read it. It will touch your heart and your soul. And as I said to Denise earlier, that I felt like she was talking just to me. Like it felt like the rest of the world had disappeared, Denise. And it was like, yay, she's talking to me. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for what you put into that letter, because it speaks volumes of what you bring to the world.
Thank you. Yeah, it's when I writing copy, I'm not gonna lie to you. You may feel the same way about this. I don't know. And I started thinking about what living naked is, who and how we benefit from shedding all these layers, and that's kind of where that letter came from. It was just to the heart of a person who hides themselves away because they don't think that they're enough, or that they have to live by somebody else's rules. And as Vishen Lakhiani of Mind Valley would say, the BS rules, the rules. And how often in my own life I've felt like that, and sometimes still do feel like that. That's where that letter came from. Of just, I sat down and I took out a piece of paper and I just brainstormed who this person is, how they feel, how I feel, and wanted to share that. So I really love that you love it.
Yeah, it's so touching. And, you know, I read it 3 times because there's a level of depth to that letter. Like, it's not just the sentence you're reading. And I'm going to share with you one of the sentences that still rests in my heart. It was the sentence that says, live unashamed and unapologetic for your existence. Like, kaboom, right there. So tell me about that sentence. Tell me about what that sentence means to you.
Being unashamed and unapologetic. You know, I think about where we are in the world right now, and I'll fully admit openly, I consciously don't watch the news. I think the news always reaches me one way or another, and I stand more firmly for love when my mind is not caught up in that kind of stuff. But that marginalization, and I think that at a point, you know, I'm clearly a Black woman.
I'm clearly brown.
I'm chocolate woman. You know, growing up, I thought I had to be these white girls to be beautiful. I had to be an Indian girl to have beautiful hair. I had to be a Chinese girl to have the right body. Like, I never thought it was okay just to be me. I felt like my dark skin, my wider nose, like all of these different attributes that were mine were somehow wrong. And, you know, I could chalk it up to where I grew up and messaging and all that stuff. But at some point, unconsciously, a decision was made that I should be ashamed about who I was. And I should therefore apologize for my existence. Like, you know, if I said something and somebody didn't react to it, well, I'm sorry. So I began, and I didn't even really think about this at the time, just to pull in my expression of who I was. And so when I think about unashamed and unapologetic, it's really standing in, this is who I am. Messy, because it will be. Naked, and just whatever comes out, whatever is birthed from this. I choose not to wear your expectations, your desires of me. That's all at this point in life, a choice. And I just encourage people. I can't even, like, I encourage people, just, you are enough. You are everything. So screw all of that. Like, nothing you can do. And that's a big thing that's been part of my journey, is the things that I felt like I've done that make me unworthy, that I went through. They caused me to think like, oh, okay, well, I should be ashamed. And through Course in Miracles, through my own spiritual journey, it's been like, no, there's nothing that I can do that can separate me from that which is greater than me. Nothing. So that's what it means. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
You'll send me on.
No, it was beautiful, because, and I'm no doubt the audience is going to feel this as well. You just touch my heart every time you speak, because there's just a level of openness to you that is rare. It's open, it's genuine, it's, here's how I feel about this, and this is what I'm going to say about this. And I think quite often when we live our passion, when we live our work, that's the beauty, right? That we are choosing that work. We are choosing to bring ourselves into that work and that service to the world, that big impact in the world. I do want to sit into the word existence for a moment, because existence is one of those words in which there is such depth into just that one word. So I'd love to hear, when you think of the word existence from a worldly perspective, from a here's Denise world, and here is how Denise exists in this world. Share with our audience your thoughts on the word existence.
That's such a beautiful question. That's what I love about spending time with you, is you ask questions that get right to the heart. It's like, this is the kind of conversation I'd love to have with people just at dinner. And I do sometimes, and then sometimes they get up and walk away because it's just too much. That's a question that brings me back to what I think about as like a fluid and dynamic sort of thing, for lack of a better word, thing. Before getting into this work, before getting into my work, I thought existence was sort of a fixed element. I thought, like I said, all that shame, all of the fear is a 4-letter word, I've decided. I thought that was sort of a fixed sort of thing. Like that's just it. That's how it's going to be. But somewhere, like deep in my gut, I was like, that can't be right. Like that cannot be right. No, I will not stand for that. And I've had a couple really low points that have shaken me to my core, that, we were talking before this, and I hadn't mentioned it to you, but thinking about suicide, about taking my own life, because I was like, that's it. Like right here, right now, my existence is nothing. It's nothing. And I was pulled from that experience to, no, honey, there's more. And through the last couple of years, what I know, and I say that, saying what I know is I feel like a difficult thing to say, because I recognize the fluid dynamics of life, of understanding, and I say I know, and that is a very small space within all that I have yet to learn and understand. So that when I say that, I have to preface it. But I know that my physical existence is just a piece of what I am. And I think that's true for all of us. I think that we are manifest here in a physical body, but that is just a representation of a separate moment. And that's not even how to say it. It's a manifestation of the thought of separation, if that makes any sense, and it might not, where we come to learn about how connected we are to everything else.
Yeah.
And so I think what I know about my existence now is that it's so much more than this, than the chocolate color of my skin. That, you know, I was on a plane recently. I don't know about anybody else, but I get like my best ideas when I'm flying. I'll be that person with my voice recorder out, like whispering to myself on the plane. Like,
you're such a creeper, Denise.
I know, right? I'm totally that person.
Mine are in the shower, by the way, so I'm just as big a creeper.
The shower and the plane. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm thinking up a really good idea for the shower, like, so that we can get these thoughts down. But I had this thought. A lot of people have read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Oh, I love that. I always listen to it when I fly. Beautiful, beautiful story. Yeah. I was listening to it and something jogged my mind about the thought, who am I? And, you know, it's deeply rooted in a lot of spiritual practices, asking this question. And as I'm flying through the sky over God knows where, possibly Texas, I'm not sure, I was asking this question, and the response, I always say the response, came back, who am I not? And I kind of sat back in my comfortable, you know, business class seat. And I was like, wow. Like, if that, for me, if that's not the question of all questions, who am I not? And at one level, it was like, there's the shadow work, you know, who am I not, like the things that really enraged me. But what felt like was even deeper than that is, how am I not you? How am I not that man who's sitting next to me in the plane? If what I believe is true, that we're all connected, and we say that, you know, you and I were just talking about how we say, we talk a lot, but we're not always saying a lot. Just the use of language. And I would say that. I would say that before, like, oh, we're all connected, and, you know, but until that moment, I wasn't really thinking about it like that. When it hit me like that, it was like, oh, okay. Like, wow. I'm going to have to sit with that possibly on a mountaintop for the next 10 years.
In the cave. Don't forget the cave.
With the waterfall.
And the birds chirping. Yeah.
All of that. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like my existence, this question of existence, is an ever unfolding evolution. I think that this is kind of why I think it was shortly after, or around that time, that I was thinking about work and all the different ways that we exist. So I'm an employee. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a daughter. I'm a girlfriend. You know, all these different things. And part of Live Naked was taking all those roles, those labels, and setting them aside. It's like, that, who am I at the core of all of that? Beyond those labels, beyond what I think those things mean, who am I, and who am I not? Like, how am I not that person that, and this goes into judgment and all that stuff, which is another question, but how am I not that person? And I think our existence is to love and be loved. I think we are expressions of love. And I say that knowing that there are going to be people who are like, bullshit.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I'm, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what I choose to stand for. And that's what I choose to believe, because I think that the things that we do are manifest of our stories of having or not having love. Like, so I could go on, but I won't. That's,
like, again, you capture my heart, and therefore I have to sit back and just think about, what is it that I'm going to say, because you speak with such a magnificence and brilliance to what you bring to the world. And no doubt it comes from the shit that one goes through in their life. I mean, that's the reality, right? Is there are life lessons that occur along the way in order for us to be in this place. And your story reminded me, a few days ago, one of my friends posted on Facebook a question, and she said, how does one know that they're awakened? And everybody gave, some pretty long answers around everything as to what their thoughts and their beliefs were. And when I sat back into that question, for me, it was so simple, and it was in line with what you just said, that for me, being awakened is knowing that you're an individual as a part of an interconnectivity, but you're awakened when there's no more questions. You don't question anything anymore. It's like, as you talked about, that fluidity, that dynamic nature of being in existence, in the ebb and flow of the beautiful days and the shitty days, and the days where you're just like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, there's so many times in which we question it. And the second part, your conversation reminded me of, as a conversation you and I had a while back, and you said that you believed in unconditional love. And I said to you, well, that's utter nonsense. How does that even, like, there's no such thing, Denise, as unconditional love. What are you talking about? And I loved the power in your conviction when you responded. And you said, yes, there is, Jivi. And I remember feeling a pushback with that conviction of how passionate you are about unconditional love, whether that's love of self, love of others, whatever. I'm going to ask you in a moment, about that word. But before, I just want to ask a fun question, because again, it rests in my heart, but we're going to come back to unconditional love.
Okay.
Tell me about picking the word couture,
yeah,
couture for your logo, because I've never seen that in a business logo, and I'm fascinated about the use of that word.
I was woken up in the middle of the night with that inspiration. Like, straight up, I was asleep in my fabulous foam mattress bed, all cozy and warm, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was this thought, just like full thought came to mind: couture coaching, life by design. And I went, oh. So I wrote it down, and I went back to sleep. As my partner of 9 years said to me yesterday, he says, yeah, because I was on the couch, I'd fallen asleep, and I was having all these thoughts, and I was like, oh man, this is really good. Why does inspiration always hit when I'm asleep? And he was like, yeah, but let's be honest. Sometimes the stuff that you have in the middle of the night is absolute shit. Like, at the time, though, I think it's amazing because you're like, but this one, I was like, oh no, that's good. And when I got up and I told him about it, he was like, oh yeah, that's really good. For a lot of people, though, I had to start asking. I was like, do you know what couture means? Because I've always loved fashion. Like, when I was younger, I wanted to go to fashion design school. Like that was my thing. And so I started asking people, do you know what couture means? And a couple people were like, yeah, isn't that like Chanel? And I was like, yeah. But then I started to think about this whole idea about design, taking away what, scrapping all the material that doesn't, like, you're like, oh, I don't really like sparkles. I don't really like plaid. Pulling in these elements that you want to create your life out of and creating that for yourself. So couture is all about having something fashioned for you, specifically for you, cut to your body, to your dimensions, and it looks gorgeous, fabulous. And that's kind of where it came from. And then the whole Live Naked thing was another download that came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, okay. So it was really funny because the two are at odds with each other. Couture without clothes.
I can position my naked body in a certain way that's customized to me.
Yeah. But I think it's really about being truly comfortable in your skin and your life fitting to those specifications, to, that exactness of who we are as individuals. So it is a little bit oxymoronic, but I really like it. I was like, okay.
Well, that's the beauty of this, right? Is because our life is full of duality. I mean, that's the reality of how you live. And so and for me, it reminded me of boutique hotels, boutique shops, where you find that one unique thing that nowhere else is it available. And so when I read that word, and as you can tell, I couldn't even pronounce it, but okay. I was just like, wow, what a beautiful word. And I know how much effort it takes to build a logo that represents you. So I just wanted to recognize in this moment that awesome job.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, it's an amazing name. And I love the living by design, right? Because it pushes you into, you are the creator. And so if you are the creator, then how do you want to design your life?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, because it was on my mind. As soon as I started to look at your work, I was like, I have to ask her, where did this come from? So
just
let's go.
Totally naked. Taylor Brands, for any of you entrepreneurs out there, Taylor Brands is the company I use for my logo. It's like an auto generator of logos. And I went through about 30 of them, and when I saw that one, I went, yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Nice. Unconditional love.
Yes.
Let's go back to that conversation, because the last time we had this conversation, we didn't go into the depth of it, but it's always rested this towards that, towards a world of unconditional love fascinates me. So walk me through, when you think of the word unconditional love, you feel into it, you feel it in your physical body. What does that mean to you?
It would have to start with a story. I know my dad passed away last year from stage 4 lung cancer. And that journey with him, I had the opportunity and the blessing to be with my parents for the last several months of his life, which I was terrified I wouldn't be able to do. But I had been studying as a health coach during the last couple years of my dad's life. And I don't know about anybody else. I think we have a tendency when we learn something new that we know can help people, we're like, this can help you, pay attention.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
I did a course on it.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to drink alkaline water. It's the only way. And there was that push for me and my dad. I mean, between the health aspect specifically and the actual mindset you know, how we create our world with our thoughts. I really I wanted him to have a different experience of cancer than the one that he was having.
Mm-hmm.
And cancer was my dad's boogeyman. He lost his brother, his mom. In the year that he passed away, he lost 2 other sisters to it. So in his frame of mind, in his reference of the world, his frame of the world, cancer was going to kill him. Like, that was a belief that was deeply rooted in his psyche from what he'd experienced. All the evidence stacked up to qualify that belief.
Mm-hmm.
And I was angry. I wanted him to experience something else. And I wanted to be able to be like, Dad, like, let's sit and talk about this. Like, if you think differently, like, if you meditate, like, I don't know, just try all this stuff because I don't want to lose you. And I was angry. I was hurt. I was feeling helpless. And I had a conversation with myself and with Spirit one day. And I was in this. I think I remember I was like driving. I was driving on the freeway and I was crying, which is never a good combination. Driving down the road, you know, you can't see. Tears are coming down your face. And it was at that point, it was lung cancer, but it had metastasized to his brain, and his cognitive functions were starting to decline. This was right before. Actually, I think I was home for something, just for like a couple days. And I thought, this is the man who raised me. This is the man from whom I have so many incredible values. Like, he was a fucking rock star. Sorry. In a lot of ways. And I realized I was in judgment of him. And I was thinking, because we'd had conversations before where I told him how I was feeling. And one of the things that he told me that really broke my heart was, I don't want you to be disappointed in me. And I was like, Dad, I'm not disappointed in you. I want you to live. And I don't know how to help you do that. But when I sat and I thought about it, I was like, oh God, like, I am in judgment and maybe I am disappointed. And it really hit home for me. I was like, if this person in my life is going to be gone, like, he's not going to be here physically. I'm not going to be able to see him, to touch him, to tell him and you know, to his face, I love you. What do I want him to know? That was just the question. I was like, what do I want him to know? And I was like, I want him to know that I loved him. No matter what his experience of cancer was, I loved him. With everything, every cell in my body, I loved this person. And I sat with that for a couple of days and I was like, I have to let it go. Like, I have to let go of this rising self-righteousness, like this desire to want to change him, to change his experience. And because I was thinking, I was like, that was a condition that he was feeling I was placing upon my love and affection for him. That if he didn't, you know, sit cross-legged out in the backyard, surrounded by crystals and singing mantras, that in order to have a different experience, that I wasn't going to love him. And yeah, that was more than I could bear. The idea that he would pass on, or that he would be in a state of mind where he couldn't consciously recognize that I loved him, and that the only memory he had was of my disappointment, of my anger, of my judgment. And so I said, okay. Like I said, I'm a Course in Miracles student, and I really, actually it was The Untethered Soul was what kind of started all of that. That's a book, Michael Scott, I think, that I was reading while I was at my house, my parents' house, because every day I was down on my knees. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to watch somebody that I love die without doing anything. And so that was really the start of my belief, was just, you know what? Yeah, I can show up every day and I can love him, and I can still be angry, but I'm not angry at him. I'm not angry. It's not a condition that he has to do X, Y, and Z in order for me to love him. I can still be angry that stage 4 lung cancer is going to take his life. I can still be angry at the time I'm not going to get to spend with my dad. I can still be sad, but I love you. Like, that's it. Like, I love you. And that started to permeate out into other areas of my life, for myself, for one, like, because I was like, oh my gosh, when I realized this, I'm like, I can't judge myself either for having felt that way. I have to let that go too. My mom and I were partners in taking care of him, and there were really bad days. There were really, really bad days. And I made the same decision. It's like, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how you feel, I got you and I love you. And we're going to get through this somehow. Like, I don't know. Some days if we have to walk out of the house and yell outside and scream, that's okay. It's okay. So that was really where it began. And it's, when you said that a while back, there is no such thing, utter nonsense. I was like, no, I'm determined for that to be true. I'm determined for that. And I've even started changing the way I talk about it. I don't say typically unconditional. I say love without conditions. Because I found that unconditional love, it's kind of one of those things that we say. And I felt like, for me personally, it had lost its meaning. Because it was one of those things that's kind of thrown around, and without realizing what that means. And you and I talked about this. You said there are conditions, if you don't clean your room, and it's not like the love changes, like that you still love your son, your daughter, or whatever, but there's a shift in your availability based on whether a person has, whether you perceive that they've hurt you or this or that or whatever the case may be. And I sort of have decided, and I say this because I'm not perfect at it. You can ask my partner. That I was determined that okay, like, it might not feel possible to love without conditions, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. And if I miss the mark, then I'm not going to judge myself for it either. Like, okay. So, my partner, I was home with him at one point during all of that, and he was going through some stuff, and we were having a conversation, and we separated for a little bit, and I sat down and I was like, oh man, there's that self-righteous judgment again. I was like, okay. I've seen this before. Did this with my dad. And this was kind of where I think living naked sort of began, was in this process. I got down on my knees and I said, I'm sorry. Like, I've been standing in judgment of you and your experience. And I've learned from what happened with my dad that I don't want anybody in my life to feel like that. Like, you feel how you feel. I'll be here to support you in that. And I think the hardest person to do that with sometimes, though, is me. So, girl, you got me crying.
Our ancestors, our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, our parents, they lived through our existence. And there's always a piece of that ancestral lineage that lives through us. And what a beautiful gift that your father was able to give you as a part of his immortality, Denise. Like when you think of that gift in the most difficult time of your life is really a segment of his immortality that exists in you because that's where it came from.
Yeah.
And as you were sharing that story, there's no doubt a wave of sadness that occurs. Even hearing the story, there's a wave of sadness that occurs. And then there's this beautiful place, like a beautiful place of immortal existence. So I'm just going to come back to the word, that's in your letter on your website of existence. And it feels as though that was his immortal existence for you. And no doubt there'll be one small part of that small existence into the people that you impact. The person that sits in front of you, the way we present ourselves in our work is through our lens of the world. And so no doubt that every person that touches you is going to be a part of that immortal existence as well. Because I totally started questioning unconditional love when you said it with such confidence and such conviction that day. I had to go back with sand in my shoes and really think about, that uncomfort with, wow, is that even possible? And now that you've added the words loving without conditions, it's a little bit more digestible for me.
Yeah.
It makes it different. Yeah. So thank you for going to the depth of that story. Thank you for recognizing your father's immortal legacy in your work. That's the beauty of these conversations, right? People say to me all the time, they're like, why do you do these interviews for an hour? Like, why don't you do them for half an hour? I'm like, because you can't get to the depth in half an hour of what really needs to be said. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your recognition of him, that his existence, his immortal existence lives through you. So thank you. Okay, let's now move into the Denise of yesterday goes through a series of life experiences and becomes the Denise of today. And then walk me through how today's Denise shows up in her business.
Ooh. Girl. See? This is the kind of stuff you'd ask at dinner. People will walk away.
Well, don't walk away, please.
No.
I could just ask you what color of underwear you're wearing or something like that, or what you had for breakfast or something.
You're making a big assumption there about underwear.
You truly do live naked.
Actually, no, they're pink. I did think about coming to the podcast without pants on, though.
Yeah.
I'm wearing pants.
Just for clarity.
Just for clarity, just in case. So the Denise of yesterday, walking you through that and how the Denise of today shows up in her work. Was that the question?
In your business, yeah, because work is a little bit different. If somebody's showing up in an employment type of thing, I'm talking about live naked, your business, like that business that lives here. So walk me through how today's Denise shows up in that business.
Yeah. Interestingly, I'm going to start going back to that word work. I'm with you. Yeah, for a long time, in fact, I had like a whole writing exercise. I love to write and journal with the word work. And I was thinking about it as it was kind of flowing out. It was like my definition for me at that time of work needed an upgrade. Because, I think the words that we give them their meaning and it's like Don Miguel Ruiz talks about in the four agreements. Language, their symbols, we give them their meaning and agree to them. And work was one that I was like, I think of work. I think of work as living kind of up against the wall, like a little bit, but, working for somebody else or doing all this stuff. And I also saw my work, and I always do this when I say that. I have no idea why. Maybe I'm referring to my chakras. I'm not sure. My hand goes where it goes.
Yeah.
But I mean the work, like at the core of who I am, the shadow work, the values, the rules, the releasing the baggage, like all of that. And I started to see that as my work, like the work that I do that feeds my business. That is my business. So you asked the Denise of yesterday, and funny, I was going to just actually talk about yesterday because yesterday I called you and was like, but I'll go back a little bit further, and I know I've sprinkled in some of it with, being a young woman, trying to navigate being chocolate in a not so chocolate world. Things that had happened with my dad, the Denise of yesterday. The Denise of yesterday lived with a lot of fear. Stuckness. When I first started on this, I was, for the first time, unstuck. Like I felt for a really long time like I was just stuck. And when I say stuck, I mean like molasses in my shoes, taped to the ground. Like I just, I felt like I couldn't move forward. In fact, it's funny because for a long time I actually had pain in my knees. In my 20s. It was like this chronic pain in my knees. Like I couldn't walk downstairs without like gripping the rail. Like my knees would give out on me. I never really understood why. I had like an injury when I was 16, but come 26, didn't really make any sense that it was still there. My doctors were like, oh yeah, you're pretty much fine. Like, I don't know what's wrong. Louise Hay does a lot of work on the energy and the emotions that got trapped in our body, and the knees, surprisingly, not really, has to do with a fear of moving forward. And when I read that, I was like, oh, well, dang.
Yeah.
But I used to sit on the sidelines. Like I would see other people, Oprah, I think, is a phenomenal energy and person in the world. I used to hate her. And I hated on her. Let me just say that, that way. I hated on her because I was like, whatever. Oprah's just, she probably has a messed up life. Like I had all these ideas about who she really was and who these other like phenomenal people were in the world, because I was sitting on the sideline going, well, there's no way that I could possibly do that. There's no way I could possibly bring that. So it must not actually be real. That person must be full of shit.
Totally.
Yeah. And I mean, fast forward, I was like, wow, that was maybe a little bit of my own stuff, a lot of my own stuff. But that's who I was living in at that point. Again, that fluid moment. But again, it was a stuckness because I didn't think that I could ever be beyond that. Like it was like, oh, well, some people get born and they're supposed to do that, or they, whatever, and that's just who they are. And my lot in life is not that. I'm gonna be working at a job that I really dislike, that is pulling me apart at a cellular level every day for the rest of my life. And I mean, that was the moment, face down on the path, that I was like, no, no. Yeah. And when I say face down on the path, that was actually face down in my giant red sofa in the dark in my apartment with Pop-Tart crumbs all over my face and little silver packages on my chest, watching Harry Potter over and over and over again.
Oh my God. Mine was sour cream and onion chips watching Jerry Springer. Going, please, my wife, not like that. I called them my Jerry Springer days.
In my Harry Potter days, I was looking for the magic. I think that's why I was watching it, because I wanted there to be magic in the world. Because I'm at the heart of me, like, I'm a total nerd. I do believe in magic. I believe that we create magic. It's just a level of perception. But anyway, at that point, I was like yearning for the magic of Hogwarts. I was like, please just sweep me away and take me to Hogwarts so I can learn to wave my wand and do things. Yes, everyone, at 27, 28 years old, and I still watch Harry Potter.
There's some things you just don't say publicly, Denise.
Hey, my life, naked couture, baby.
Love it.
There was a decision that was made through a lot of hard conversations. My partner, like I said, he and I have been together. This is our 10th year together, and he's my guardian angel. And he told me at one point, he's like, look, I don't know what it is. He's like, you are amazing at a lot of things, which at the time I didn't feel amazing. He was like, you have to stop this. Like, figure out what the next step is, but this job is killing you. Mm-hmm. He's like, you have a light in you. He's like, I've seen you light up rooms, and I'm watching that light. I look at you now and I can't see it. And he's like, and I know that that's not right. And that broke my heart because, one, I didn't believe that the light actually was in me. Mm. And two, I knew that where I was at was not a good place. Mm. And to have the person that I loved the most in the world on a romantic level telling me that was really difficult. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, what can I do? Like, what can I do with my life? And he at one point had suggested, like, just whatever it is, just get out of there. Like, go sell used cars. You could sell somebody anything. And I was like, I'm not selling used cars at CarMax. Like, no.
Yeah. You could have just worn those long trench coats and said, want to buy a watch?
That was before live naked was a thing for me. And they don't do that on the West Coast as much as they do that on the East Coast. But it started to, like, that was when I talked about that unfolding. It started to unfold. And I'll just fast forward. You know, a lot of that compare and despair continued to come up over my journey into coaching. I had the opportunity to work for the company that I got my certification through, Health Coach Institute. And prior to that, it was like I was seeing people take off with their coaching. And I was like, why isn't it working? Well, it wasn't working because I wasn't working it. But, you know, that's only one part of it. But through coaching with them and coaching students as a success coach, it all just started to unfold. Like, I started to hear my intuition more clearly. I started to trust it more. Like, there were conversations where I would be like, I would hear something for that person and be like, I'm not saying that. That's weird. Like, and so I'd be on the phone, and you know, my students can't see me, and I'd be on the phone going, I'm going to say something to you. You just let me know how it lands. Because I'm like, oh my God, they're going to think like I've gone crazy.
Yeah.
And I would say it, and they'd be like, oh my God, I was just talking this. How did you know that? And I'm like, I didn't. I didn't. But to answer the question of how I show up now, what I recognized, what I learned over the course of that was the coaching is not about me. I'm the channel. That's it. Like, I am a channel for another person to recognize their own brilliance. Because I can see it when I sit down and I look at you or I look at my student, like, without a doubt, I don't care what story you come to me with. I'm looking past that and I see you. So I'm like, okay. And then, like I said, the little voices in my head. or that gut feeling, or, you know, what direction are we going to go in? That has been, I think, the biggest thing for me is trusting that, and trusting that my girlfriend Giovanna said this the other day in conversation. I thought it was brilliant. I'd never thought of it this way, but she calls it the idea of the holy third. That you're coaching on a team. Once I get out of my way, like, oh my God, am I going to be a good coach in this moment? Like, are they going to think what I said was like earth breaking and all this, like, that I am supported and I'm just the mouthpiece for what is there for them. And that feels like, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that all day. And I want to, like, I want to. That's just exciting to me to bring that forward for people. Whatever it is that they need to hear, they maybe don't know they need to hear. So I hope that answers the question. I think I
totally. As you were talking, I had a live naked moment, because I think that, you know what I mean? Like, I think these are little magical moments that occur as you're in conversation, because when you said, I can look past the story that you're telling me, that for me was that live naked moment of, wow, like, who is that person that's beyond what story I'm presenting to you? So I love the way that you've been able to take everything that you've gone through, but in the place of no judgment, in the place of loving without condition, in that place of, I can approach, you know, my client through being of service, especially when you have to put yourself aside. There's a fucking level of freedom and liberation to that. Seriously, it's like you get into this place of, I really don't give a flying fig Newton, because it's not me. And I find that, and I don't know if you find this, but I find that so liberating, because you're not attached.
Oh my God, yeah. I feel like those are the more powerful calls that I have with people, is when, you know, that actually happened with a client of mine. Like, I came back from this event and I was getting in touch with this whole idea of like stepping out of the way. And we had this session. He goes, whoa, you were on fire today. And I was like, that was like, okay, but it wasn't just me. It was like, and when I noticed, just like you're talking about, like, there are times when I'm sitting there and before a call, if I'm in that space of like, okay, am I going to say the right thing? Like, what should we talk about? Like, blah, 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 blah. There's like anxiety welling up in me the whole time, and my heart's racing. But when I take that moment to just take a couple breaths, let me just, and I do this now, let me just be the conduit, the channel for whatever this person needs. Let me serve them to their highest good. I'm like, yeah.
Denise, do you have creepy moments in your business where you're like, oh my God, I think I just creeped myself out? Yeah. I totally have moments like that in my work where I'm like, something just came out of my mouth and I don't know where the fuck it came from, but it totally just creeped me out.
Was that like our entire reading when you did my business tarot reading? Was that like, wow.
Yeah, it's when you get out of the way, right? And something, whatever it is, whatever anybody's belief system is, but when it's divinity in whatever shape or form is working through you, yeah, it's an amazing experience to have. And okay, darling, as much as we predicted before this show, we're like, oh my God, we could talk for hours. We have 5 minutes left. So here's my question. The whole world is listening to Denise McKinney right now in this moment. What do you want the whole world to know?
Oh man, so many things are coming to mind, and they're not exactly coherent. Um, there's nothing, and I know that it sounds crazy to say this, especially in the world that we live in right now, that is manifest in this plane right now. But there's nothing that separates us from one another. And if we are love, that therefore means there's nothing that separates us from love. I just encourage people to take off the mask. There's, somebody said once, and I thought it was really profound, all of our fear lives in the space between our true face and the masks we wear. Mm-hmm. And, in this world where we are prone to believe, if we are ourselves completely, that someone will hurt us or attack us or whatever the case may be, I challenge you, they're doing that anyway. Mm-hmm. And out of their own fear, out of their own space between the mask, and the more of us who do this, who remove the mask, who are willing to step into our truest expression, and whatever that looks like. And again, being love doesn't mean you don't get angry, doesn't mean you don't feel things. It means that that's emotion in the moment. We don't hold on to it and carry it around as our baggage, holding it in front of our face like this. We have so much more capacity to shift the consciousness of the planet. So Live Naked is a personal philosophy, and it's also a call to action. It's a call to action. Those things may happen. They may not. And I really want to encourage you to think about the other side of the coin. It's like we think about what if X, Y, and Z goes wrong. That's the dirty, dingy side of the coin that's facing up to the sky, that's got all the pollution coming down on it. If you think about a penny on the ground, when you turn that penny over, there's this bright, beautiful side, and that side is, what if it goes really well? What if the best thing in the world happens? And so that's my plea is, whatever living naked looks like to you, I encourage you to step into that a little bit every day, just a little bit every day. Consciously communicating what you feel about something. That's not blaming, that's not shaming, that's removing blame and shame from yourself, but just sharing your truth. And just, yeah, I've got like 2 minutes here, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. We are a beautiful representation of existence. We have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And we're living in a world where we think that things can't change, things won't change. And change doesn't start necessarily outside of us. There are outside representations of change, things that we can do, but if it doesn't change right here first, none of that is going to make any difference. So I'm inviting you to decide what living naked means, decide what the next best smallest step is for you to do that, because changing and expanding and transforming what's going on within us, stepping into and claiming that power, means that we get to change the world. Beautiful. And that's it, I think. I did it in the 2 minutes. Like I said, I could go on, but I respect our time. So, yeah. And you know what? Actually, there is one more thing. You are loved. That's all I can say. And you're not just enough. You're everything. Like we talk about, you are enough. You are everything. And you are being everything, an extension of everyone else. So it's not necessarily just who are you, but who are you not? And how do you want to treat that person? Whether it's you or another person, if you are that person, how do you want to treat them? And if you're treating yourself poorly, we got to start there.
Nice. Beautifully articulated. I don't even have anything to add. Like, what do you even say to that? You are so amazing, so brilliant, so magnificent. And I have such high gratitude in my heart that we're walking the earth at the same time. Because that's a choice, and people forget that. People forget that, you can live in any era. You could have been born at any time. You could have walked the earth at any time. And I am feeling blessed and honored that you and I chose to walk the earth at the same time. So thank you for coming here at the same time as I was.
I wouldn't have missed you for the world.
See, this is where I do my happy dance, but I still don't have my tutus for my thumbs.
Okay, I'm going to have to find thumb tutus and send them.
Totally. All right. Thank you so much, Denise. What is the best way one can get a hold of you?
Just go to couturecoaching.com or email me at hello@couturecoaching.com. Couture is spelled Couture. And all of my contact information is on there as well. Beautiful. And then there's also facebook.com/couture coach. I'm all over the place. Instagram is, and I had to write it down because I can't remember hashtags and things. Instagram is _couture_coach, and Twitter is @couturecoach. So.
Beautiful. And if you wouldn't mind, Denise, put it underneath this interview as well, please, just so that people have direct contact with you if they're watching the interview, want to get a hold of you. Otherwise, thank you so much. Please stay there for a moment. We'll do our thumb dance. It was such a blessing, such a pleasure to talk to you, but don't go anywhere. I'm just going to wrap up and then I'll be back. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you joined us live or if you're watching this afterwards. If you're wanting to take a step forward into, looking at what does living naked look like for you, give Denise a call. Believe me, you will not regret it. I think I've said this multiple times that I do not have anyone on my show that I would not recommend for myself or for anybody else. So please know, give her a ring, and you've got a weekend to think about what's your first step to living naked. All right, take care, guys.